Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sleuthing Eye-Opening Tales of the Past. I'm your host, Marie LaBrosse, and you're listening to WKDW 97.5 FM Real Community Radio on the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower out of Northport, Florida. Welcome to my show. Now, this show is about past, but everybody, the last minute was our past. And I do this show about history, and everybody has a history. So it's open to anything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Today, I'm really honored and I'm really interested in who my guest is today. I've never had a monk on before, and this is going to be very interesting for you, the audience, and for me, the host. I would like to welcome on our guest today, Monk San. And hi, Monk.
Hello. Hi, Mary. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, how should I refer to you? Monk San, or how do people normally acknowledge you?
So, people here in the area call me Mangsan because I think it has a sort of a ring to it, but usually monks addressed by Bante. Bante means reverend. So,
Oh, okay.
it means it's from Pali language. The language is spoken by the Buddha is called Pali. It's one of those dead languages like Greek, Latin, but Bante, Bhante, Bante. So
Bante.
I
So,
prefer Mangsan.
okay, I will call you Monk San.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we're going to start at the beginning and not even, we'll keep everybody guessing where you're located, where you're affiliated with here in the United States, because we're going to start at the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Sri Lanka,
Oh,
so
yeah. And I'm bringing up on the screen for our radio listeners where Sri Lanka is. And why don't you tell us a little bit about where you were born and where it's located for those of us that may be geographically challenged?
I was born in Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka is a small country. Actually, it's smaller than Florida if you want to kind of picture it. But it has 20 million people. Some areas very densely populated and some areas are not. But I'm from the central province, right? Like the middle of the country. It's called Kandy. So I was born there and I was exactly right in that area. And I went to school, and so I finished my monk school, my regular school till I was 11 years old, and then I went to my monk school until I came here to the States. I was actually living in Kandy, Central Province. I was 24 when I left the country. So
Now, how does that work? Went to regular school until you were 7, and then after that, you were put in monk school. And do you leave your family at that time?
that's a very good question for listeners because the monkhood in Sri Lanka is a choice that a kid would make. And interestingly, I had the desire to go and become a monk when I was 5 years old, but my parents wouldn't let me. And so my dad passed away when I was 8. And then when I went back to stay with my grandparents, there was a story that happened with my neighbor's son was about to go to become a monk. And when I heard that, that memory triggered me at the age of 11. So I decided, okay, I want to become a monk, and this is my calling. And so I talked to my mom, single mom, raising 3 kids. She was like, absolutely not, you're the oldest, you have a lot of responsibility. So I, when you're a kid, you know how to get certain things your way. And so I went to my grandpa and said, I want to become a monk. and please make that happen. And so he talked to my mom, and so rest of the history. And so but it's a personal choice. And so once you have the desire, if the parents agrees, then you can actually find a monastery that you like to go, and then you can they teach you the basic skills you need, languages, and all that other things you need. And so I was 11 years old. So I went to seventh grade till seventh grade as a boy. And then I went to the monastery, and that's where I was raised and I was given the higher education. So
And how old were you at that time then?
uh, at the time I went to the monastery, I was 11 years old.
So you were 11 when you went in there. And when you go in there, do you have relationships still with your family? How does that work?
Well, our teachers strongly suggest our families to not to visit much, because then kids usually change their minds, and so they start to miss their family, because being a monk is a it's I always call it being in military, but with a different purpose. So it's very regiment schedule. So when we breaks that, it's really difficult to get back on track of it. So I really didn't see my family whole a lot. I would see them maybe once a year, if I get lucky, twice a year. That's about it. And so,
So when you go in, because I know nothing except what I've seen on TV
right.
about Buddhism and becoming a monk, when you go in this, what is the discipline like? What is where do they start with teaching a young man, a young boy into a man?
A great question. So I would we have a schedule. So our day is pretty much a schedule. We get up at 4:30, no matter your age is, and you get up 4:30 in the morning, and then you have a morning practice, and after that you have chores. And one of the chores is that you go to village for beg you breakfast, your meal. And so you have a begging bowl, and you go, we call our arm realms, and we go, we each one takes turns. So if I stay at the temple, at the monastery, I have cleaning. And so when my day to go for arm rounds, and so then I go to that. And then after breakfast you have a study time, and after breakfast we eat lunch. After study time we have a lunch, and then we have monk school. So monk schools are different from a regular school, because there are certain subjects are not taught, and it's geared towards teach kids and young adults and teenagers. They are all monks, and they learn different levels of the skills, different levels of languages, philosophy, history about Sri Lanka. And so they have a little bit of deep understanding, and also a lot of chanting, and you know uh, English term would call biblicals, but in our tradition we call it the Dhamma, the teachings. And so we trying to, they try to teach you a really to have a really good grasp of these teachings and how to apply those things to life. And so it's a different way of life. And so you really sort of don't have what a regular person would, football. There is no football. There is no basketballs. There is no playtime. There is no TVs. There is no games. And so it's a different skills set, and it's not for everybody, because I tried that with my brother, and I took him to the monastery 3 times, and every single time he eloped. And so I realized that's not for everyone. So
No, and it's a discipline too. You learn to become very disciplined.
right,
And one of the things that you are taught is to meditate. And
right,
I think that's something that most of us should learn in life, is how to do the meditation. One of the questions my husband actually threw to me when he found out I was having you on is the chant and the humming. Is it a certain tone that you learned? Is there when you do the humming, is there like a B flat?
Right.
In the tone and stuff. Is there a certain tone that they teach?
They try to, but everybody's chant differently, and so it's okay to chant the way you want to chant it. Basically, one of the primary purpose actually people forget. I always go back to why, ask myself why we do what we are doing. It's important questions to ask, then we don't get lost in our purpose, you know. One of the reasons that it's really important to remember, in especially in Buddhist traditions, why chantings were so important. This was, we're talking about 2600 of a tradition Buddhism is. So all the teachings actually came through memorizations. And so chanting really helped, because when you listen and when you read and when you chant together, it allows you to remember. And I remember there was a time, this was a long time ago, I'm learning about history. There was a, um, a drought in Sri Lanka. No food, no water, enough water. But monks would just make get together around sand, you know, uh, collect sands, and then they lay their heads so they can stay close to them. And they didn't have enough food and water to conserve energy, so they would just lay there and chant the teachings so they can pass it on to the next generation. And one of the main purpose of, and so that's how this tradition came. There are so many people actually made sacrifices these teachings to be alive today. So it's important to remember the purpose of the chantings is not necessarily it's more musical, but it just to keep that tradition going and to pass these teachings to the next generation. But now with the books and the technology and everything, people are kind of forgetting about chantings too. But when we do chant, they do teach you at my monastery. They did teach you how to chant and when to chant and where to stop and where to breathe and all that. All those things taught to us. So
And when you learn that, people learn how to sing like that too. When you're talking about learning how to breathe,
right.
and breathing is really important. And a lot of people don't realize that if you get into a car, a lot of times you'll stop you won't breathe when you're going. I have a problem myself that
Uh-huh.
I don't take a breath when I'm doing things. You kind of hold it in, but breathing, to be conscious of that, to make sure that you do breathe.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, exactly. And how did you learned all the different languages there. What is the language in Sri Lanka?
It's called Sinhalese. It's derived from Sanskrit. Basically, we have a lot of Sanskrit words that derived from that, the basic form of Sanskrit. But now it's its own language, and Sanskrit, of course, the dead language. It's not used anymore to speak. But my language is called Sinhalese.
Okay. And you have mentioned that you were learning different languages in the monastery.
Right.
So I imagine English was one of them.
I did learn English, but I only knew grammar at the 24 years of age. When I came here, I always tell people I was watching TV, news TV, CNN and Fox News and whatever that I can, turn on. And I was just staring at them, not knowing that they were speaking English. So that's how my English was at the time.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Now, how did you end up coming to the US? How did that happen?
So I was 24 years old. I had finished my basic training and my education, and I had my master's degree in theology at the time. I had one of the brother monks in Chicago, and he was sick at the time, and he just had begun his movement there, which is Blue Lotus Original Mother Temple, and he was suffering from some medical condition, and while he was visiting Sri Lanka, asked me if I would come and help him. uh, Ironically, the situation that I was going to go had to do with English, and I did not speak the language, and so that was that put me on a uncomfortable situation, because it was a local community. It wasn't a Sri Lankan community, and so that's how I ended up actually in the States.
And you were 24 years old when you came here,
Yes.
and you weren't very versed in our American English. So you must have struggled in the beginning.
Yes, I did, but I worked really hard, and I used. I remember watching movies and just writing down all the dialogues, and I practiced them. And I would read, and I took ESL, English as a second language classes, and so I started from the zero, and so learning about B verb, and so that's where I started, and so. Today I am where I am because I put that effort to.
Effort in, and you speak very, very well. It's hard to, when you come from another country, just like us, when we go to a foreign country, and whether we can speak it very fluently. Right. There are some people that can speak it very well.
Right.
However, when they go to the country, people can pick it up as an accent too.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
So very good. Now you're in Chicago at that time. How did it end up that you ended up in Florida?
So when I came to, I was in Michigan a couple months just to get to not to have the cultural shock. So it was a Sri Lankan based community. I was there about 9 months, and then I ended up Chicago, and I was helping him, and we were meeting at a Unitarian church in a basement called basement Mondays and Saturdays to meditate, teach meditation. And so we ended up actually, then we had the recession hit, and the house market crashed, and the church couldn't keep up with their payments, and it was on sale. And we were in a position to make them an offer, and so we ended up buying the church, and we turned that into a beautiful a temple. One of the beauties about that is they had this 8, 9, probably even 10, probably even more than that, foot tall pipe organ. And we took that away, put a very beautiful Buddhist statue. And so on one side, now there is a 6 foot, 7 foot tall Buddhist statue. And the opposite side, there is stained glasses of Jesus, and they're watching at each other. And it's such a beautiful thing when you go in there to see that, especially when the sunlight comes in. It's one of the most beautiful spaces that you can sit and meditate.
Isn't that interesting? Would you explain to the audience, in case you're just tuning in right now, you're listening to Monk's On, and I'm your host, Marie LaBrosse, and we're talking about Monk's son and his journey, and then we're going to get to where he's at today. But you're listening to WKDW 97.5 FM, Rural Community Radio, coming out of Northport, Florida. And we're going to go back because Monk's son was just talking about this beautiful temple that they have in Chicago that they were able to get, and they have a Buddhist statue on one side and a statue of Jesus on the other, facing each other. So a great place to meditate, no matter what religion you have. No, you're in Chicago, and then you end up in Florida. So, and that must have been during the COVID shutdown, right? That
Well, actually,
oh,
no. I was
afterwards.
in Chicago, and I wanted to just um, be a little bit of a gypsy kind of a monk. I just decided I want to be like a little bit monk on the go. So I, made a plan, and plan didn't really work the way I wanted. But I never visited Florida. This was 9 years ago. So I believe it or not, I've been in Florida now almost 9 years.
Okay.
So I had some friends here. One of the monks here, Bante Chan, who is the abbot of Blue Lotus, Florida, and when I asked him, "Can I come and visit, stay there?" and he said, "Yeah, sure." I had a little tiny car, Fiat, at the time. Everything I had fit in the car, and I packed my car and I came here. So then I ended up here, live in Clearwater, and I worked in Venice and going back and forth, and then the next chapter began. So
Okay. And you became a nurse, correct?
right. And
And,
so I was always interested in the mind and the brain, and so I wanted to study neuropsychology. But then I realized financially that's going to take a long time to support myself, because you at least need a PhD to just make something of yourself. So I decided to, because I was a caregiver at the time, while I was doing I call it monking, but being a monk teaching in Chicago, I used to work at a group home. I took care of people with developmental disabilities. And so I saw how nurses were interacting with these individuals. I have so much great respect for people who have disabilities, Down syndromes, and things like that, because their human resilience is just amazing. And so that really inspired me to become a nurse. I wanted to help people, and so while I was staying with Bante Chan, and I started going to nursing school, and I became a nurse. Only nursing that clicked me in nursing school is psychiatric nursing, because I think it's just my love for mind and the brain. And so I ended up becoming a psychiatric nurse.
no, you work up in St. Pete.
Right. That's right.
Okay. Up in that one. No, that'll bring us to your other journey.
Right.
So, how did you end up in the Venice location at Blue Lotus? And I'll bring it up on the screen so our audience can see, because you are at, there we go. You're at the Blue Lotus Buddhist actually I'm showing the Blue Lotus Buddhist Meditation Center here.
Right.
And,
In Venice.
and it's in Venice.
Right.
And something just recently happened because of storms.
Right.
And would you like to tell the audience what had happened and what your need is?
Sure. Yeah. So uh, we didn't at the beginning, we didn't have a place, and so this place came about, and so we made it's our own space. And then COVID happened. We were closed for almost 2 years, and we had an opening, and then people were excited, and we fixed the floor, and we made some changes inside to the floor and everything. It looked really beautiful. People loved coming there. And so after COVID, that February of 2021, we started classes like as normal. And we had 2 sessions. And the next day, I went there and I opened the door and I noticed something is different. And I realized there is no roof there anymore, and everything was on the ground, and the place has fallen down, and now we are in effort to we can't rebuild the same place anymore because insurance really doesn't cover us, and they said that they would cover the hurricane if it was declared hurricane. Since it's rainwater, they don't cover the damage. And
it was when we got that real heavy rains.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
and
unfortunately, we are not covered by it.
yeah, and this is what the damage looked like.
Exactly. So that's beautiful space now.
Had fallen in, and what you're looking at is actually rebuilding. Well, not rebuilding. You have to actually probably move to a different location, is what you were telling me. Correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And you're in, okay. Anyone that wants to actually help it with assistance and stay at home, contact Nadine at 941-323-8033. Because you're looking for doing of, you actually, from what Darby was telling me, and that Darby is somebody that actually attends your, um, the Blue Lotus. Uh, you plan on doing a dinner, correct?
Right. This is going to be in April, and so we annually we did a taste of Sri Lanka. So we basically offer Sri Lankan food, and so we sell tickets, and so we are planning on doing it a little bit of a bigger scale this time, so we can get more funds. So we are currently teaching at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Venice, and also we are doing classes on the online. Everything listed on our website www.blbmc.org. And people who are interested in, we are very active Buddhist community, and we work with local communities to help and understand Buddhist teachings. And so now our effort is to somehow rebuild on our place, to build a new place. One of the possibilities that we are looking into is to work with Unitarian Universalist congregation in Venice to coexist with them. And so they have made a nice offer. And so, but even still, we need a lot of donations to get this going. The monks that people should know, monks at the Blue Lotus, we don't consider this is as our job. This is our lifestyle, and we support ourselves. And this is a labor of love, and so we put a lot of time and effort to this. The whole everything is about helping, having a community, a place for people to come and practice. And so no matter who you are, you can be a Muslim, a Christian, Catholic, a Hindu, really doesn't matter. We don't discriminate anyone, and anybody can come and meditate with us. And we are just there to support and share what we know. And we have an open invitation. And in teachings, there is a word called ehi passika, meaning come and see. And so you all are invited to come and see. And so if you're someone who are willing to or looking to connect with the Buddhist community and support, uh, we are here, and we appreciate all the help we can get.
Oh, and that's wonderful. No, do you have a date for your event?
We do not, because unfortunately we because now we are in with the COVID, and everybody has certain restrictions. And so if we are going to do the dinner, and how are we going to facilitate it? And so mask mandates, and with everything. And so we are talking to some churches in the area, and especially we are talking to the Jewish Center in Venice to see if we can rent their space, and if they allow us to have this function, so we can actually, because their space, I was told, that a little bit bigger and space here. And so
Right, and it's always so much fun to do fundraisers, isn't it, monks? Yeah, to put those together. I mean,
that's
actually,
your cup of tea.
that's my opportunity. Yeah, to
Right.
do to put them together. when you're looking, how many people do come to your facility all the time? Do you know, on a regular basis? Like,
Regular basis like today, we at least have for our class a bit online and in person. We would have 20 people, but our email list goes to has grown to 1,400, and
oh,
so last 2.5 years we have touched so many people's um, in so many different ways, you know, to within 2 years to 2 to 3 years to build that many big of a audience. And I think that we have done something that resonate with people, you know.
yeah, and I'm able to bring up the gallery. This is from a few years ago, but as you can see, this was your facility
Right.
before, and
It was
how
our
many
blessing
people,
ceremony, yeah.
yeah, and how many people, did come
So
in
these
there.
events usually, our main events usually we have up to 100 people that participate main events.
Hmm. And I see here that there's an email, Serenity Buddhist with a S at gmail.com.
Right.
SerentyBuddhists at gmail.com. And their phone number is 941-323-8033. Now, what kind of classes do you teach? You were saying you have classes.
So we teach meditation, and so our classes last about an hour and a half, depending on the instructor. And the meditation part is guided, and then after that we have a discussion or a talk, something that either picked by the instructor, or we ask question and answers. If people have any questions, they can, we can have a open discussion about uh, things that they face day to day. And so we are very, our way of teaching is very practical. People can apply it to their day to day lives. And so
Yeah, when I brought up the calendar here, is that calendar what your current calendar
right.
is?
And we continue to update it. And so some stuff changes all the time. And then, we have other teachers too, because when we had the center, we actually used to offer Reiki, we had yoga, and we had, massage therapists work with us. And so there were like different things that went because we are more holistic approach. We like to take a holistic approach, not just Buddhist teachings, but we want to a place that people can come and have a variety of things that they can actually experience. And so that's our goal anyway, even for for future.
Mhm. No, I see there's a few of your classes online on Zoom.
Right.
Uh, on Sunday, Buddhist Wisdom from 4 to 5:30, and it's a hybrid starting 6:20. So you do it both in person and on Zoom.
Yes, that's one of the beautiful things about us, that people who some people are not still comfortable with the masking, coming to having it in person, and so they can connect from Zoom. And some people are really tired of Zoom; they are done, and so they want to be in person. And so for them, we actually have all the classes in person as well. So we
And that, yeah, and that one is basic teachings of Buddhism,
right.
the chance to meditate as well. And that's one of the things, especially if you're just learning about it, this would be a great way to get introduced to everything, correct?
That's right. And so I want to remind our audience that doesn't really matter which class you go to, because we really don't, all of our classes are, I would say, um, all levels. And so, you shouldn't be concerned about, oh, maybe I shouldn't be going because I have not meditated before. Maybe they have been practicing for a long time. You can come to any class actually. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
And I'm looking at another one that's the last Sunday of the month, monthly Sutta study with Bhikkhuni Vimal.
Right. And
Okay.
so the sutra study is it's someone that actually a little bit know about the teaching. So those will say if it is not a meditation class, it wouldn't say that it's a meditation class. And sutra study is just the people who are looking into a little bit more about the Buddhist philosophy and what the Buddhist teachings is about. So they want to go dive into deep into the teachings a little bit, and so they have a that opportunity once a month that participate in a class and talk about um, the main teachings of the Buddha. But I'm mainly talking about because a lot of Westerners are interested in meditations, and so I would encourage Wednesdays, Sundays, and Saturdays. And then there is a Friday class as well, uh, but it's from a different tradition. But
Whoa, okay. Okay, yeah, I'm looking at Venice Turgar with.
right,
Oh, okay. When I'm looking at this silent sitting and walking group meditation only on Zoom, but that's actually kind of great because you can stay at home
right.
and be on Zoom, and it's sitting and walking group meditation. Now, how does that work? When you do a group meditation, you're on Zoom, and um, with the walking part, are they walking around the room while they're on Zoom?
Yeah, this that's it. And so we have practitioners then that been practicing for a long time, and so they wanted to have that. Um, they really find meditating as a group, whether in person or on Zoom, is more effective as a group. And so we actually put these classes on. So those who are interested in silent sitting, because even if they used to meet at the center, they wouldn't talk to each other. It was just silent sitting, and so they just take turns, and if they want to sit they would sit, and if they want to walk around they would walk around, and they would follow the same format, but they feel that connection with each other, even being on Zoom, not in person. And so that's why we have that.
And I'm looking at the one on Saturday with the meditation and discussion with Mark's Monk's. Oh, that's you.
Yeah, that's me.
From 10:30 to 11:45.
Right.
It's guided loving kindness, and that's called metta.
Meta, yes, meta.
Metta, because I usually wear a be kind shirt on, and I don't have one on today. And so that's called metta when it's and how do you do that? Guided loving kindness.
So in that class, Mary, if you get a chance, I would like to invite you to stop by sometimes too. So I guide the meditation about 30 minutes, step by step and word by word. I would exactly say, how to get through the practice, and then we do loving kindness practice, which is metta practice, and then we practice mindfulness practice, with it breathing practice. And so it's about 30-40 minutes, and then we have a little bit of a discussion. And so people really like it. And so there are certain words that I use, like, may I be healthy, may I be content, and may I be peaceful. And so we'll start with ourselves, and then we spread it to our loved ones, and then we spread it to the world, and we include all living beings, because you and I, we all feel love, kindness, compassion. We all feel sorrow, pain, anxiety, stress the same way. Doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter what your color is, doesn't matter what your faith is. We all have that, this humanness. and it's very universal, it's very unique. And so when we practice that, we include everybody, because just like how I feel about myself, that I want to be safe, that I want to be healthy, that I want to be peaceful, the same way my neighbor and my loved ones and the people that I don't know, even sometimes when they do things that not really favorable, but their goal is in some ways is to have that safety, have that, be safe, have that contentment in life. And so it's a very unique practice, and so I have found it to be very, very beneficial, and it's very effective for a lot of people. And it has changed some people. I've seen it, and last uh, 13 14 years teaching meditation in America, I've seen how those few words has changed in some people, have has changed some people's lives. And so I would like to invite you to come sometimes, May.
I probably will at one of these times. With and you and I had talked, and I can talk about it on the air. I
Yeah,
go in for breast cancer surgery on Monday. It's not a life-threatening one, although anytime you go under anesthesia,
right.
yeah, you never know if you're going to make it out okay. But I'm going through that, and my son is actually a minister up in Minnesota, and he asked me to publicly speak about it because I am a public figure out in the area. And he said, if you get one person just to go for that mammogram and it saves their life, Mom, that's
Right.
what you need to do. And I said, I don't like to talk about those things about myself. And he said, well, you're doing a disservice if you don't. So just for people out there, if you're watching the show, or if Monday I do go for that. And it's kind of interesting going through this
Right.
because you're a nurse, but you work with the mental
Right.
health portion. So many of us, we live in our bodies, but we don't know anything about our
That's
bodies.
right.
And when I'm going through this process, and I didn't know how many different kinds of cancer there are
Mhm.
for breast cancer
Right.
alone, there's all different kinds. And the one that I have is called DCIS, and it is non life threatening, and it won't spread.
Right.
However, it may come back, so they're removing a little bit more than I was expecting. So, surprise, 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 surprise. When you were talking about the mindfulness and being in, it's almost being aware of the universe, even, you know, in Buddhist teaching, because like I said, you know, I should have done my research really, really hard on Buddhism, but I'd rather learn from somebody that actually practices it,
Right.
and that's what your mission is. What is the practice of Buddhism? What is the mission?
So we do have a final goal. Final goal is called nirvana. Nirvana basically means to live with without I would call it uh, too much attachments. And so we are basically practicing to let go. And when you think about all the worldly problems and arise from one thing, is that um, our uh, this I desire to be, I want to be this and that, myself, and that self-centered attitude creates a lot of issues. And so when we have a really good understanding about how little time we live on this earth, and even though we feel like it's eternity from birth to death, we go through so many changes. And so one of the biggest issue for us is when we live, we forget we die. When we are healthy, we forget we get sick. And when we are young, we forget that we get old. And so when we practice mindfulness, one of the basic understandings that we are getting is everything is in a constant, everything is in a flux, and any given situation and any given moment and anything can change, just like our center change. We never imagined 2 years ago when we signed a contract that it will change. A change, you know. So when we practice mindfulness, I call it insightful awareness. When we have that insightful awareness, when we see that momentarily these changes and see that small changes are change a result of a bigger picture of a change is a result of a smaller changes. You know, I always tell people jokingly, like, don't be surprised when you sit in front of a computer, a mirror, and when you see a gray hair. It's not a result of that something happened overnight. These are changes that happen without we seeing, without we realizing for over a period of time. And so when we practice mindfulness, what we are trying to notice is, as you said, we are trying to be harmonious with the nature and we are part of it. And there are things that we cannot control. And so we learn to accept, acknowledge. And when that happens, it becomes a lot easier for us to be okay with these certain bigger or smaller changes. And that is how we become content. And if somebody thinks that having everything, when I have a bigger car, house, and a family, and everything that you think will make us happy, and for someone who lives in a third world country like Sri Lanka, would think that people who live in America are actually the happiest people, but it's not the case. When you think about it, what my mom has and what somebody here has, she has nothing and they have everything in her eye, but she has something that here they don't have, because she can be happy with what she has, but some people here they cannot. And so this fundamental understanding is so important. It seems simple, but it's a lot deeper to really to recognize, understand. And so I'm sorry I'm giving you the a long
No,
answer, but that's the purpose. And so uh, that's why we do practice what we practice, and it does take a little time. And I hope this discussion really inspires some people to really to explore this. And I think in return, if somebody, for let's say Mary giving me this opportunity to really to explain, and somebody comes to meditations and turn their life around, that's a blessing itself for you. And so imagine that.
yeah, and one person can change one person's life. You may not change the world, but if
Exactly.
you do it for one person, you've made a difference in this world. And I do agree with you with the mindfulness. And here in America, and in some of the countries, we have too much. We
Right.
have too much stuff. In fact, I'm looking at my garage. My garage. I've been trying to empty it, and I came across a video. I was emptying it 3 years ago in 2019, and I do a video, and I'm taking pictures of stuff, and I gave away at least half of the stuff out there, and then we did a remodel, and it still filled up again. And I go, we have too much stuff, and I'm trying, and that's one of the things we accumulate, and we don't need that much stuff. We don't need things. It's people. And one thing with COVID, when that hit, what did we miss the most? We missed the people. We didn't miss the stuff. We
Right.
missed the people.
Right.
And people are the most important things. And you're correct. We're only here this little speck of time. What
Right.
we do from the beginning to the end is actually what makes the difference.
Right.
And we don't, greed and wanting and that, and when you're younger, you're not mindful of your getting old because you take it for granted,
Right.
including myself, that I was going to be strong all the way through. And now that I'm older, that I'm up in my 70s, I'm going, what happened? I was a strong woman.
Right.
And now I'm not a strong woman, and we have to hire people to do things that I would have never thought of in the past.
Right.
But that's because I wasn't mindful of really planning. And I know that I should have been, but you get caught up in some of the things
Right.
in your world. But when you meditate and you actually are making it a conscious effort,
Absolutely.
you're actually
Right.
being mindful of it,
Right.
then I think your world becomes much calmer.
Yeah.
You're able to control a little bit more of what's happening in your life and making some decisions.
That's right. That's right.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I'm sorry, our time is up already. That went by fast.
Thank you so much. And I want to add one more thing to this, Mary. On the 17th of this month, I know a new revelation has started from with the Ukraine and between Russia, and there are so many people suffering from this. And I know I was told that there is a huge community of Ukrainians in the Northport area,
Yes,
and
there's over
we
five.
are we are holding a vigil on 17th at the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Venice, of Venice.
Okay.
So it's going to be 4:30 to 6:30, and I would invite everybody to just participate. This is not a religious thing. It's not a political statement that we are making. I just want to people to be empathize what both side of parties going through, civilians. Nobody should go through uh, fear, anxiety, stress, or anger, or any of these, things, because that's suffering. And so we are just there to support them, to think about them, say a prayer, and if you want to participate, I would like to invite everybody to come. So
Thank you so much. And there is a community of over 5,000 in
wow.
Northport. They're the largest Ukrainian community in the state of Florida, and it's right up in Northport. I live in Port Charlotte, but if you go down Biscayne Drive up in Northport, it's called like Church Row, and there's all these different churches, and one of them is the Ukrainian church, and they do have a lot of things going on. They have a very strong community. They've really given so much back to the area there. And the reason that a lot of them moved to that area, I'll just throw this out here, is more mineral springs. It has the natural springs there, which is hot springs,
Wow.
and they come for the medicinal purposes of the water.
Okay.
Yeah, for people that don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
very
You've
interesting.
you've been listening to WKDW 97.5 FM Rural Community Radio coming out of Northport, Florida on the Bishop West Real Estate Tower. And we are here. My name is Marie LaBrosse, your host. This is my show, Sleuthing Eye-Opening Tales of the Past. I was here today with Monk Son from the Blue Lotus Buddhist Meditation Center out of Venice, and he lives up in St. Pete. And I really encourage people to go check them out. You can go to their website, blbmc.org. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And check them out if you want to help support and just come together to support the Ukrainians. March 16th, they will be having
17th.
17th?
Yes, 17th.
Oh, St. Patty's Day?
It's the Thursday.
Well, if it's March 17th, that's St. Patrick's Day.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, they'll be drinking green beer. Yeah. Thank you for being with me today, Monsan. And to all our listeners out there, we have choices in life to be kind or not to be kind. Please choose kindness. Have a great day. See you again next week on Sleuthing Eye-Opening Tales of the Past.
Thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you.